Om Shri Sai Ram. Dear listener, this is a recording of a serial radio program broadcast earlier on Radio Sai. Following popular demand, this serial entitled Krishna Arjuna Dialogue is now presented in the form of a CD. The Krishna Arjuna Dialogue is an adaptation of the Bhagavad Gita with appropriate amplifications inspired by Swami's teachings. We skip chapter 1 as it essentially is a running commentary by Sanjaya on the battlefield scene prior to the commencement of the fighting. We move to chapter 2, where Krishna begins his advice to Arjuna, who feels dejected about the war about to commence, as it would see a bloody conflict between grandfather and grandsons, between the teacher and the taught, between cousins and between friends and relatives. Arjuna feels that the war is not worth it. That is when Krishna begins his famous instruction. The advice that Krishna gave applies to all in every age, because life is often a battle against all kinds of odds. The knowledge that Krishna imparted is thus timeless. It is called Atmajnana, or the knowledge of the self. In the original Gita, chapter 2 is called the Sankhya Yoga. Essentially, it means the path of wisdom that would lead to union with God. This chapter is very important, packed as it is with precious gems. Swami says that whenever Mahatma Gandhi felt depressed, he would read the second chapter. We now begin the Krishna Arjuna dialogue with the reading of chapter 2.
Sanjaya continues and tells Dhritarashtra, Krishna is now beginning to say something to Arjuna, who appears to be drowned in sorrow.
Krishna says, Arjuna, how come you have suddenly become so remorseful at this very last minute? You can't quit now. It is too late for that. You have got to cast aside your doubts and misgivings. Get up and enter into battle.
Arjuna asks, Krishna, how is that possible? Bhishma over there is my grandfather. Are you asking me to shoot arrows at my own grandfather, who has showered so much love on me? And over there is my Guru Dronacharya. How can one kill one's own Guru? Can there be a greater sin? Frankly, Krishna, I cannot see any great purpose in this war. I am very confused at present. To fight or not to fight? That is my question. Krishna, I seek refuge in you. Totally surrendering to you, I pray to you for your guidance.
With a broad smile on his face, Krishna replies, Arjuna, you are acting like a perfect fool. You are mourning about the death of your relatives, etc., even before they have died. Do you know anything about life, death, and what happens after death? You obviously do not, for if you did, you would not be chickening out like you are trying to do now. Let me drive some hard facts into your thick skull. Arjuna, your big problem is that like everyone else, you think you are the body. You are also used to seeing bodies being born and die. Since all these images have got stuck in your mind, you are now worrying about death. Now listen to this carefully. Neither you nor I are the body, though we both possess them. I wear my body like a dress, and so do you. Now who is this I that is wearing the body? It is the Atma, Arjuna. It is the Atma. By the way, there is no such thing as my Atma, your Atma, and so on. It is the same Atma that is present everywhere, wearing many dresses. There is only one Atma, period. Are you wondering how this is possible? Maybe an example would make things a bit clearer. Just look up in the sky during the daytime. You will see some clouds here and there, an empty sky in between. Everywhere, including in the spaces between clouds, there is water vapor. In some places, this water vapor shows itself up as clouds. Elsewhere, it is not visible, but it is present all the same. Notice two other points. Firstly, the clouds keep on changing their shapes, and secondly, no two clouds are alike. The same sort of thing happens in the world. The Atma pervades the entire world, indeed, the entire universe. Here and there, it manifests via the dresses called bodies, not only of humans, but also animals, insects, etc. Thus, all living beings are the embodiments of the one universal Atma. Recall what I told you about clouds changing their shapes with time? The same sort of thing happens to a living being, or the embodied Atma. The being passes through various stages, such as childhood, youth, middle age, and old age. When the body becomes old, the Atma just casts off the body and wears a new dress. That is, it acquires another new body. Arjuna, I am telling you all this because you started feeling sad about death. There is no need to, because death is just a change of dress. That is all. Your problem is that, like all humans, you are totally focused on the body. You think you are the body. Tell me, is that dress you are wearing, Arjuna? No, it is just your dress. You are not the dress, but different from the dress. In the same way, neither you nor I, or for that matter anyone else, is the body. The Atma is our real nature. Death makes people sad because they foolishly identify themselves with the body and become upset when it is gone or about to go. Arjuna, just think. You are a warrior and you have fought battles before. I am sure you have on occasions slain people in those battles, but all the killing earlier does not seem to have bothered you at all. Yet today, you are feeling miserable even before you have taken the bow in your hand. Why, Arjuna, why? Well, you wouldn't know the answer, and so let me tell you. Arjuna, you are feeling miserable today because the people likely to die in this war are yours. It is this feeling of mine that is really troubling, and not death per se. After all, you have slain adversaries before. Arjuna, this feeling of mine comes because of body consciousness or body attachment. And such an attitude automatically arises when a person thinks he is the body. But I remind you once again, you are not the perishable body, but the eternal Atma. This Atma is indescribably beautiful and wondrous. It is eternal and beyond both space and time. It is neither born nor does it die. Do you understand that, Arjuna? Drona and Bhishma are all the Atma, just like you and I are. So how can they die? It is their bodies that would get destroyed, like a dress getting worn out. Why feel miserable about something trivial like that? One day or the other, the old dress has to be thrown away. Arjuna, thanks to this process of casting off bodies, one after another, there is a practically endless cycle of birth and death for the body. But you must not focus on the superficial aspect. If you focused just on the body, you will see growth, decay, and death. Those changes do not apply to the Atma. Those changes do not apply to you, but only to your body. Focus therefore on the Atma and not on the body. This Atma that I am now talking about cannot be cut. Fire cannot burn it, nor water wet it. It is everlasting and all-pervading. In a human being, the Atma shines as the consciousness and as the resident of your heart. By the way, when I refer to the heart, I mean your spiritual heart and not the physical heart. This divine resident is also sometimes called the indweller or simply as God. Since God is installed within you, you don't have to look for Him all over the place. Just look inside, in your heart. Let me now come down from these sublime heights to something practical. You must be wondering what exactly you are, since you have a body, and I am here telling you that you are the Atma. The answer is simply this. You are in fact the Atma, but wearing right now a dress called the body. The Atma with a body is sometimes referred to as the Jivatma or an embodiment of the Atma. Jiva means life or a living object, so Jivatma means Atma within a cocoon called the body. To put it differently, Jivatma is the Atma wearing the dress of the body and the mind. The Jivatma is thus like an actor wearing a particular dress. All are actors in this stage called the world, and all are, without being actually aware of this fact, playing different roles in the cosmic drama, scripted, directed, and produced by God. As you know, Arjuna, in a play, all actors must speak their lines properly. In the drama of life, speaking proper dialogue means following one's natural dharma. This thing that I have referred to as natural dharma is also called Swadharma or Atma Dharma. It simply means the dharma of the universal self resident within, or if you prefer, the Atma within. In simple terms, Arjuna, you must always act in conformity with Atma Dharma. That is what speaking the correct lines really means. Are you lost? Are you confused? Don't worry. I shall make it simple for you. Following Atma Dharma simply means following the path of righteousness in a perfectly selfless manner. Consider what you are trying to do right now. A war is about to start between the forces of Dharma and Adharma. And you are supposed to be on the side of Dharma. And what are you trying to do? Drop out at the very last minute, giving all sorts of silly reasons. Arjuna, do not forget that destiny has made you take birth as a warrior. That is no accident. You must therefore go through life as a warrior, doing your duty in conformity with Atma Dharma. What exactly does that mean in the present instance? As a soldier, it is your duty to fight for Dharma and against Adharma. But you want to wriggle out of that duty, giving all sorts of excuses. Is that correct? Consider. In a drama, can an actor suddenly say, "I don't like this part," and start playing another? Let us examine your problem a bit deeper. You say that Bhishma is your grandfather. That is true. But don't forget that the relationship is purely one of the body. Next, even though Bhishma is your grandfather, he has lined up with the forces of evil. In fact, he is the commander-in-chief of the wicked Kauravas. Now tell me, what should be your duty? Can you walk away claiming that Bhishma is your grandpa? Or should you stand with the forces of evil and defeat them in battle? The answer is clear, is it not? Arjuna, in life, duty must always be performed without any trace whatsoever of attachment or selfishness. In practical terms, you must discharge your duty without A. being bothered about the outcome and B. expecting a reward. That really is what Atma Dharma is all about. Only a selfish person would worry about success, rewards, etc. That attitude is not correct. Duty for duty's sake is the proper attitude. Arjuna, there are two words that people often use: rights and responsibility. In the olden days, people always worried about responsibility and duty, but these days, people mostly talk about their rights. They constantly say, I have a right to do this, I have a right to that, and so on. Let me make one thing very clear. Man has a right only to duty and nothing else. Krishna answers, that is because people easily get deluded by the senses and the mind. These two, in unholy collusion, prevent a person from looking deep within himself and communing with the heart. Once a person gets cut off from the indweller, his outlook and vision become purely external. The outside world is full of what is called the pair of opposites, like joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain, success and failure, and so on. A person immersed in the external world is easily overwhelmed by 6 terrible enemies that are deadlier than the deadliest serpents. These enemies are Kama, meaning desires, Krodha, meaning anger, Lobha, meaning greed, Moha, meaning attachment, Mada, meaning pride, and Matsarya, meaning jealousy. To these you may add 2 more, namely Ahamkara, meaning ego, and Mamakara, meaning the mind feeling. Arjuna, take it from me, unless you keep out these enemies and have full control of yourself, you cannot fight your external enemies, as you have to do shortly. Do you want to know why these internal enemies have to be vanquished first? Simple. You would agree that when you have to deal with a crisis, you have to remain cool, wouldn't you? Now, what exactly does remaining cool mean? It means that you should not be disturbed or bothered by what is happening around you. It is only when you are cool that you can think clearly. And unless you can think clearly, you cannot really handle a crisis properly. Agree? A good leader must not lose his cool. This characteristic does not come easily unless one makes a conscious effort to practice detachment. One who is detached is automatically unaffected by success and failure, joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain. There is one word that describes such an attitude: equanimity. Arjuna, equanimity is necessary not only for a so-called leader, but for everyone. In a family, the father is a leader, so equanimity is needed for the father. What about the children? They had better start copying their father and learn to get into that groove from an early age. Above all, equanimity it is that helps the seeker to rise above the world, rise above the pairs of opposites, and go towards God. In life, you don't see much of equanimity. Why? Because the internal enemies make sure that you are not strong enough to practice equanimity. That is why. Take your own case. You want to run away from duty. Why? Because of attachment. Arjuna, The feeling of mine and thine is one of the many weaknesses that one must overcome. Never forget that perfection in duty is possible only when there is equanimity, and duty performed with perfection would please God very much. You too would feel very happy about having pleased God. This kind of happiness is unique, and it is called bliss. Arjuna, what people normally call pleasure, joy, happiness, etc., are all connected with experiences of the sense organs and the mind. This joy can never be re-experienced through recall. Such happiness is always transient. By contrast, the happiness that you get by pleasing God is an experience of the heart. It goes beyond the senses